Our town hall continues right now with a look at the uptick in gun violence here in Buffalo and in many parts of the country. So last week, you may have seen the U.S. Department of Justice announced the Buffalo Police Department got a 2020 Project Safe Neighborhood grant worth almost $250,000. It will be used to put in place something called a shoot review process. The goal is to solve more shootings and get criminals off the streets. And joining us live right now is Buffalo Police Deputy Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia, who will lead this effort with BPD. Thanks so much for coming on. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Deputy Commissioner, can you start by simply explaining what this shoot review process is and how it will help your department solve shootings?
So the shoot review process brings everybody into the room together. We work regularly and have worked regularly with all of our partners, both local, state, federal, and speak with them on a regular basis about any of the crimes, shootings, gun violence. However, this process brings everybody in a room on a weekly basis, on a set day, a set meeting, and we go over every single shooting that's occurred within the prior week. We listen to what our detectives have to say about their initial investigation, what they accomplished on scene, and then what needs to still be done. And then everybody is in there listening to take ownership of different items that need to be checked off the list.
There has been some reporting just about the uptick, especially in gun violence, and it's certainly not a Buffalo issue. It is in many big cities across the country. What do you attribute it right now, and how do you kind of quantify how much of an uptick we're seeing in gun violence now versus normal?
So we look at the successes that we had last year, and it was through a lot of community intervention. We concentrated a lot more on our custom notification program, where we're knocking on the doors of group members, affected people getting involved in violence, and particularly gun violence. And we saw approximately a 24% decline in our person shot last year. Worked with a lot of community members and organizations. This year, some of the changes that came about, and we think that bail reform has something to do with it. Now, bail reform does not apply to gun arrests and shootings. However, when you have more people on the street, we are seeing a reduction in the bail. Gun defendants being held on bail, and they're getting out on lower bail. We also, robbery was one of those items that bail reform affected, where judges had to release robbery second, robbery third. And we saw some of our shootings or gun defendants are also committing robberies. We saw that correlation. So one of those things we think is bail reform, and we need to get courts back going again so that we can run grand juries and get indictments out.
Interesting. That sounds like something lawmakers might want to take a second look at. Let me also ask you about a trip that you took recently to Milwaukee, and I'm assuming you talked to your police counterparts there. What did you do and what did you learn from that visit?
So I actually attended a seminar with the chief of Milwaukee Police Department. I'd been in contact with them last year, and we discussed what they put in place. So in January, we set up a trip with the Commissioner, Chief Richards, Chief of Detectives, myself, and reached out to our federal partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the DA's office, and we went out to see what they do. We got a tour of their facility. We look at their packets, how they prepare for their shoot review, the shooting list, shooting victims list, and then we sat in on their seminar. And it's a wholesome, one-siloed approach where you have everybody in that room. You have the feds, the state, you have probation, parole, and then that also works on a part two. It's not just in there looking at your shooting cases. You also want to look for those people that are not, quote unquote, our frequent flyers, or not completely involved in that gang life, and that might have been involved in something. And we want to tackle that from a community approach, a wholesome approach, like our custom notification program, and see if there is an avenue to get them out of that life, that circle of violence, before they get too deep into it.
Finally, Deputy Commissioner, I have less than a minute here, so I'll ask you to be brief, but we are having this kind of community discussion right now about police reform. You're part of the leadership of the Buffalo Police Department. What do you think needs to be reformed within your own department right now?
So I think we've made some pretty positive changes, and one thing is communication. I mean, we need to work on our communication. Policing is it's not just the police officers. The community is involved in this, and we need to work with the community. It's to protect and serve and prevent crime. We are community servants. We are out there, serving our community. And the more involved and engaged we are with the community and making them understand the process of policing, what our investigations are about, building those bridges, the better success we're going to have. And I think we've, bridged some of that gap.
Sure. Well, we know they are all really complicated issues, and your work is as challenging as ever, but we appreciate your taking time to be with us. Joseph Gramaglia, Deputy Police Commissioner here in Buffalo. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to keep texting us your questions and comments, 849-2200.